All of the talk at the moment, guys, seems to be about the failings of the All Blacks. But where this video has to start is to congratulate Ireland. Historic win, fantastic and well-deserved. I'm going to cover all the details right now, including the All Black perspective and the Irish perspective, so stick with me and let's roll this intro. Kia ora everyone, my name's Zach, I love rugby, welcome back to Hakatime Rugby. There it is guys, Ireland take the win, 23 points to 12, first win in New Zealand soil, which is historic, and sets things up nicely for a decider in this series. It's now 1-1, huge game coming up this weekend to decide this game. I mean, these two games, Game 1 and Game 2, have just been contrasting games. I'm going to cover all the details very soon, guys, but, you know, on the one hand, you have All Blacks dominance in the forward pack. Now you have Irish dominance. Game management has been superior from Ireland. There's just so many talking points now as we lead into Game 3 and to decide this series. And when I look across all other games, all Northern Hemisphere teams won, so we have deciders across the board. My weekend is going to be busy, and I absolutely cannot wait. But before we get into the breakdown of this game, guys, I just want to refer back to Game 1 and my observations of Game 1. I came out of that basically saying that I thought the scoreline flattered the All Blacks. I thought that Ireland were not as far out as the game as the score would suggest. I called that there were a lot of red flags in that All Blacks performance last week, and there was a lot of positive work that Ireland did in the areas that they had dominance. First 20 minutes last week in Game 1, and at the start of the second half as well. Once they got ball in hand and started dominating the breakdown, they just got a roll on and were able to really put pressure on the All Blacks defense and make breaks regularly in those time periods. I thought that that was going to be a telling factor going into the second game, and it was. And I think a lot of these factors, and I actually got a lot of criticism, you know, people saying that I was far too generous to the Irish in their performance, possibly fishing for subscribers. I wasn't fishing for subscribers, but it would help me if you subscribed. But all of that to say that I actually looked at that game objectively and just thought, you know, there are a lot of positives here. It reminded me of losses that the All Blacks had to Ireland in previous matches. And, you know, if you're not going to acknowledge those factors, you know, maybe this match might have come as a surprise to you, right? But it didn't come as a surprise to me that Ireland had this performance in them because we have seen this before. To do it in New Zealand, though, is a huge step forward for this Irish team. I think, for me, that is the biggest talking point that is coming out of this. I knew that Ireland were capable of this performance because they have shown it before in beating really, really good teams, including the All Blacks on numerous occasions. But to do this in New Zealand is the historic part because it's very difficult to win in New Zealand. And to do so, you know, under enormous pressure in an environment where, you know, Kiwis live and breathe rugby, to do it there is a huge achievement. So, you know, I've just got to say congratulations to Ireland for that factor alone. So, key talking points. The first thing I want to cover off is the fast start by Ireland. This is something we have seen regularly before from Ireland. We saw it in November last year. We've seen it in other wins that they've had against the All Blacks. They come out of the gates very quickly. They're able to score points and put New Zealand into scoreboard pressure almost immediately right off the bat. They did it again here. First try scored by Andrew Porter very, very early in the match. And he just seems to be having a really good series. He was dominant in scrums, actually, in this, which we'll get to some of the breakdowns as well. But he comes out and scores very, very early in this match, puts the All Blacks on the back foot, and they also get a penalty to take the lead out to 10-0 very early in the first half. Now, that reminded me of a lot of these games that we've seen before. So immediately, you know, I think for the All Blacks going forward, that's an issue they really need to address. How can they come out early and match that intensity that Ireland are bringing early to put points on the board early and to put the All Blacks under scoreboard pressure early? That's a key point and a key takeaway that they'll need to get to. The first half, now on first watch of this match, you know, with all the cards and all the drama that was going on, firstly, I just thought, what a bizarre first half that was. You know, I don't remember a game where there were just so many talking points. And we'll get to the cards themselves. I mean, I actually agree with almost all of them. Or at least I can make a case for the interpretation. It's very clear to me. And I thought the referees ultimately did a good job of this, is explaining very clearly the thought process they went through in order to get to the outcome. So logical reasoning, very easy to understand. And while I thought the Fainganuku yellow card was probably a little bit harsh, I get it. head contact, shoulder. The responsibility is on the player in the air, the defender, as opposed to the attacker. It makes complete sense. Part of the issue for a lot of the All Blacks is that it's a different interpretation at Super Rugby level. So I think this is a case more of not adjusting to the standards of World Rugby, more so than any sort of inability to stick to the rules, or I guess any harshness from the ref, I should say. So that's something the All Blacks need to take away and look at. But to have a yellow card to Whanganuku, another yellow card to Tuangafasi, and then Ta'aval to get the red card in quick succession, it was just like, wow, this is bizarre was the word that I used. But on second watch, it was just dramatic. I just thought it was a really dramatic series of events that got the All Blacks, who were chasing points at that stage, remember, down to 13 men, 14 men. One thing that I did notice, though, at that point was the All Blacks actually came away with a lot more resolve. Now, this might be a really unpopular view amongst All Blacks fans, but this is my point of view, okay? I actually thought this was one of Sam Cane's best performances in the black jersey. Maybe he doesn't get the plaudits for his, we know that he's a good defender. So a lot of the logic sort of says justifying his selection. He is quite limited with the ball in hand. We know that. But this match, particularly that first half, required a level of leadership to keep the All Blacks from completely slipping off a cliff, right? They were down to 13 men for long periods, and it just seemed like the game wasn't being managed particularly well, so they were under constant pressure, territory advantages to Ireland. But I just thought the leadership group did very, very well to keep the All Blacks fighting and in the match. And the forwards actually came up big, huge moments in that first half. So a lot will be made in the post-mortem of this game about the performance of Sam Cane and about the performance of Ian Foster in particular. But my takeaway from this was actually Sam Cane, I thought, was the player that was needed in that position at that time under all of those circumstances for this All Blacks team. As I say, that's going to be an unpopular opinion, but that's how I saw towards the end of the first half. That's how I saw it. As we move forward, so the red card resulted in Ardie Savea ultimately going off, with Aidan Ross coming in to, in the propping stocks there. Later on, that led to a bizarre result. They couldn't bring Ardie Savea back, so that's mismanagement. The All Blacks have asked for a please explain from World Rugby. It's good to get the rules clarified. Obviously, I don't think it would have ultimately resulted in any changes to the result in the end, but it's worth All Blacks management getting that right in the future. That could be a huge result in future matches, so you need to get those things right. But halftime, the score is 10-7 when Beauden Barrett goes over the line to score just before the half. At that point in time, I was reflecting, thinking, I don't think Ireland have scored enough points, obviously, to have this match so close with all of those factors in their favour. It started to feel like some of those other games where the All Blacks have started to manage their way back in and to steal games towards the end. So ultimately, I thought there was a great first half from the All Blacks dealing with all of that adversity. But second half starts, and it's a replica of the first half. Ireland come out and start fast again. Andrew Porter gets another try, another couple of penalties to Johnny Sexton, and again the lead starts to blow out. The All Blacks at that stage had been attacking and defending with 13, 14 men at the time, were chasing the game, significant portions of that game, and just weren't able to claw their way back into the game. I thought Ireland, in terms of game management, were far superior than the All Blacks, right? Johnny Sexton, when he is in this team and when he is guiding the ship, really helps to keep them on track. We saw that in game one, that when he did come off, the performances dropped. Carberry, great player, but obviously unable to manage games as effectively as Johnny Sexton, and he's so valuable to this Irish team. So he did go down with an injury late in the second half, so hopefully he is right for the third game. We definitely want to see the best players on display to decide this game. But he is so important to this team. On the other side, you had instances where the All Blacks were really chasing, trying to run out of their own end goal. Both backline Barrett brothers were guilty of this, Beauden and Geordie. Rather than kick the ball, they elected to run. And the All Blacks had handling issues all night. So if you're dealing with, superior game management teams, if they are pinning you down in your own territory, if you're trying to run it out and you're giving away handling errors, it just compounds the problem. It's territory issues on top of possession issues, on top of handling errors, all of a sudden it becomes a lot harder to manage your way back into the game, particularly if you're down to 14 men. So I thought the All Blacks looked panicked, looked rushed, and could have dealt with being a little bit more conservative in key moments in that match. From an Irish perspective, in my view, here are your big three positives from that match. Firstly, game management. I touched on this a little bit, but Johnny Sexton, his game management, his ability just to move this team around, to manage territory, and on the other side, the All Blacks were chasing, trying to run out of their end goal, and just weren't doing so effectively. So that was a huge reason that Ireland won this game. 75% territory in the first half. I think it finished in the 60 percentages overall for the match. It's very difficult to win games if you were chasing from your own end goal. Next big positive. Ireland were very dominant at the breakdown. It's a big contrast from game one in that, all of the physicality was coming from the All Blacks. Whereas in this game, the speed of the ruck, the inability for the All Blacks to slow down that momentum, great work in turnovers from Caelan Doris in particular was huge. Peter O'Mahony, the way he barked back at the All Blacks towards the end, is just a real... he was in the air letting them know that Ireland were on top and about to take this game. And I love that kind of competitive spirit. So, the breakdown and the work that Ireland did at the breakdown was a huge reason why they won this game. If you go back to game one, guys, the All Blacks were able to slow and disrupt the breakdown. It led to Severis's first try, right? And that is the way that you need to beat Ireland, is you need to disrupt them, stop them from getting such quick ball. The All Blacks weren't able to do that in game two. And the Irish dominated the breakdown far better, and that was a big reason why they got the victory here. The next thing I want to look at, another big positive, is increased defensive intensity from the Irish. I think it became quite well publicised, and particularly Squidge Rugby did a great video on the innovation that the All Blacks were working on in game one, and it was really using Aaron Smith as a ball player. So what he was doing is, rather than set up traditional, three-man pod in the forwards, they were a lot more fanned out in terms of an attacking line. And Aaron Smith was really finding one of those players in order to be the first receiver and to get outside the rush defense. That led to Ardie Saveer's try in game one. Fantastic try that was. But Ireland were onto that this game, right? So they continued that approach, the All Blacks. They were bullet passing out to the third, fourth receiver. And who was there? Caelan Doris, Peter O'Mahony, some of your best jackalers were right there expecting the ball to come. Now, what I was surprised about from an All Black perspective was Aaron Smith has got three players to choose from, right? But he continually went to that third and fourth man where the defensive line was fully set and aware of that play. So I'd like to see a lot more variation in the All Blacks attack. As we look forward to, the preview of game three, I'll touch on a lot of these more sort of tactical issues that I saw from the All Blacks. But a lot more variation needed, because Ireland were just able to pinpoint the man that got the ball and attack him at the breakdown, and in many cases win turnovers. So those three areas I thought were huge positive improvements from Ireland in this match, and went a long way to determining the outcome of this match. On the other side, let's look at the All Blacks. So three big issues, and in my view, these are the three in order that the All Blacks need to address. The first is discipline, right? So I'm not criticizing the ref in any way for those interpretations and those decisions. For the most part, I agree with them. The responsibility is actually on the All Blacks players to adjust the interpretations. And as I mentioned, I don't think the All Blacks have, particularly the players that play in Super Rugby, have themselves set well enough in order to adjust. A lot of the interpretations at Super Rugby level, we just don't see as many red cards and yellow cards. So I think that's a serious adjustment that needs to happen before the Rugby World Cup. You cannot win games if you're down to 13 men or 14 men. And we've certainly seen that more often than not, when the All Blacks get red cards, go back to that British and Irish Lions season series in New Zealand, they lose games. So got to clean up the discipline. That's number one. Secondly, game management. So this was just a really clear contrast to me. Ireland were managing the game and territory far better than the All Blacks. The All Blacks were trying to run the ball out of their own 22 regularly, and there were a significant number of handling errors. So all of that just compounds the issues of territory disadvantage, I should say, if you are the All Blacks. So it really needed cooler heads. It needed a better ability to game manage. And when I look at the Super Rugby final, that might be a good reference point for people to go back to. the Crusaders did a far better job than the Blues at game management. So I feel there's a couple of quick fixes there if the coach is willing to look at alternatives in key positions. I'm not going to jump on that right now. In the lead up, and again, I'll do a tactics and strategy video at some stage this week where I'll look at some of those key positions and where we have seen proven performers step up in those key areas to better manage games, particularly where it's territory disadvantage and a need to manage territory is required. The third is handling errors. As I mentioned, when you have a territory disadvantage, when you're not managing the game, then having handling errors just compounds the issue. And when we look at game 1 versus game 2, that's a big change in the All Blacks' performance. Everything was sticking in game 1. The hands were great and people were just able to pull off great plays. Whereas game 2, it was just constantly drop balls. I don't know if it was pressure. I don't know if it was preparation. But that's something that they need to fix, right? You cannot win games if you are losing the territory battle and if you're dropping the ball regularly and unable to use the ball. So those are 3 areas I thought were big issues for the All Blacks, areas that they need to tidy up. But what this does do is sets us up for a huge finale, guys. So to preview the remainder of this week, I've got a podcast coming up with Rich and Max from the Black Jersey and the RugbyAnalyst, who most of you guys should be familiar with. Keep an eye on that. That's likely going to be posted on Rich's page, his channel, very, very soon. I am going to look at strategy and tactics for this week. I'll look at the selections, and then I'm going to give a prediction, guys. We have seen 2 contrasting games. One where the All Blacks have been on top physically, one where Ireland has been on top physically, and 2 with vastly different results. So, how does this play out in game 3? You'll have to join me throughout the upcoming videos to find out. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the rugby. I hope you enjoyed the review. It really helps me, actually, if you can hit like and subscribe on these videos. You know, I enjoy pumping out this kind of content. And there's a lot to talk about this week, guys. So hopefully you stick with me as we preview and prepare for what is going to be an epic weekend of rugby. Thanks again. Enjoy the rugby. Congratulations to Ireland. And I'll see you guys back here soon.